Hi, so I have let my first glazes dry here on the flippers and the head. I'm sorry, they're my second glazes. First was that very light brown, and then we've got the other lighter washes that we just did. I wanted those to dry so that I could put these other light splotches on there. And those will in fact have to dry as we continue because, like I said, glazes are thin, transparent washes that they're piled up one on top of another. And really, when we think about glazes, we're thinking about kind of the idea that windows have. When windows are many windows, let's say if we had lots of sheets of glass layered one on top of another, eventually you wouldn't be able to see through them very well, especially if they were imperfect windows like old windows are. So thin transparent layers that dry one on top of another, and we build them up to create really interesting complex colors. And so here what you're seeing me do is I just took one color, which is kind of that turquoise kind of blue-green, and I'm starting to add some little random splotches here and there. I'm going to start with my lighter colors and move towards my darker colors. These are still pretty thin glazes, and by thin what I mean is they're transparent. I can see through them. I can see the other consecutive glazes that were there before. But they're wet enough that I can move them around. They're not going to dry too quickly. I'm certainly not doing dry brush here. And so I'm kind of loosely just kind of trying to abide by these little shapes that are on his face and his flippers. I do know that the neck is going to need to get much darker. And so, but now if I continue to work like this, these are not going to dry. And so what I need to do is allow those to dry. And for the sake of this video, I'll move to something else. Now I'm going to paint what these are. These are like little toenails, I guess, for this guy. These protect his flippers. They're hard. And I'm going to move back towards the base of his flippers. I'm going to get a little bit darker. This is a burnt umber. And as I was drawing this today in preparation for this demonstration, I was actually thinking about these little wrinkles around his neck. That literally is a turtleneck. Yeah, it looks like fabric being folded over. I just grabbed my Payne's Gray. Watercolorists don't often use black, although I did just recently order some, maybe it's Mars Black, I think, for another painting because I needed some really black. But true watercolorists, or purists I should say, don't like to use black because it has no color in it. Payne's Gray really is actually alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue with a little bit of Mars Black in it. And it's more interesting. It's just much more interesting than just flat black. So I would say if you ever wanted to mix your own black, then try to do something that's a very, very deep purple with a brown added into it or something like that. You notice that I wanted to get this a little bit dark back here. All the wrinkles that were in his neck, I painted the wrinkled part and I left some areas light. And maybe I'll come back now and get his eye. So I'm going to leave some of these as pencil lines and I'm going to paint only part of it. If I paint all of it, it just really actually looks pretty fake. I'm not going to paint his smile, really. Sometimes if I do that, it ends up looking more cartoony. Like when we were little and we used to, you know, draw a little smile on things, little eyes, little smile, they have to be done in black, right? So here I'm going in for these shapes here, very loosely. I'm still kind of playing around with color. Like I said earlier, this needs to be my focal point, not necessarily his face. And so I don't want as many colors here. I'm not painting everything. I've got some dry areas now that I can kind of work in over here. Some of these are bleeding. Some of these little splotches that I'm doing are kind of bleeding, and that's okay. But I would much rather have things be mostly dry. Oh, I forgot his toenails on this flipper. I'm getting a darker brown now, and I'm going to put that at kind of the base of the toenails. I don't want flat color. Let's see, get my Payne's gray out. I guess I'm going to lose that pretty blue that I really liked that bled in there. So here I'm really just building up these glazes. Things are getting darker. I'm trying to be both loose and but also paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm not just blobbing things on. My eyes are going back and forth between my original and my painting, and I'm trying to mimic some of these things. I'm not copying it exactly. And I think what I can see is I need some of these shapes to probably bleed together a little bit more. They might need to have less, might need to be darker. Blue would probably be helpful in that case because it's already brown. So this blue is not going to be super bright. It's already going to be muted. In fact, it might even read as black or gray, this blue. But then there are a couple splotches of yellow. And so I'll get those in there as well. Continue with this blue here. This is my ultramarine again, ultramarine blue. And it's darkest at a couple points here in his neck, right under his shell. His shell is casting a shadow on his neck. And then if I want to vary what I'm doing with my paintbrush, I'm lying it down flat, and then sometimes I'm using the point. So I can pick it up and use the point, or I can lie it down flat for broader strokes. And that's the beauty of a great paintbrush, is that it can be really big and you can still get lots of fine little details. And I'm almost done here. I think I want a couple little red bits because I lost that. There was a lot of red in this original, and I overpainted these. What I really like about this first one is that I didn't actually fill in the whole shape. I left some areas white, and I really should have done that. I should have held back. So if you're going to paint along with me at home, maybe you kind of hold back and leave some areas of the paper white, leave it still showing. But I at least am going to go back and try to put back in some of the red that I lost, even though he's getting a little too colorful now. It's okay. I'm going to let it go. Let's see, a little bit more of this thin turquoise on his face. And let's put a little yellow on his neck right there. Maybe that's too strong of yellow. Picked it back up. Okay. And I think we're done. And there we have it. There's our little watercolor turtle. And I hope you get to swim with these guys because they're super cool. They're really big in Hawaii. We swam with them one time, and it's just really an amazing experience. If you can't swim with them, at least you can paint them. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.